Everybody. Let me tell you why I chose to teach Heschel today, particularly today. Because like no other time in the modern age, certainly no other time in my lifetime, have we needed to focus not only on the life of things, but on the life of the spirit. We're surrounded by mystery and anxiety and the unknown. And like no other time, we seek resources within us and beyond us. Rabbi Perlmutter taught about some of this today, and this is a bit of an extension of that. It's a time to be in touch with qualities within us that we may not be aware of, we haven't worked on very much. Now, Abraham Joshua Heschel was not a systematic thinker. He was not a systematic theologian, but he was a profound poet and a profound thinker, deeply religious man with a neshama, a soul as deep and as profound as anyone whom I've ever known. And I didn't know him well, I just was in his presence a couple of times. And he helps us get in touch with the transcendent, the soul within ourselves. Rabbi Sam Dresner, a wonderful conservative rabbi, I mentioned that since we got Reformed conservative tonight here, wrote that to remember and study Heschel is not only to honor Heschel, but to restore ourselves. And that's what I hope we'll do tonight. So there's a picture of Heschel with Dr. King. I think you can tell who is who. Heschel was born in 2007 in Warsaw, Poland. The picture is when Heschel and King were together in Selma, Alabama, 1965. We'll come back to that in a moment. Heschel was descended from preeminent European rabbis, both sides of his family. Now, he had a traditional yeshiva education. He had Orthodox rabbinical ordination, PhD from the University of Berlin, and then went on to the Hochschule der Wissenschaft des Judentums for his liberal rabbinic ordination. That was the Hebrew Union College of Berlin. In October of 1938, he was arrested by the Gestapo in Frankfurt, deported to Poland. 6 weeks before Germany, and he taught Talmud in Poland. 6 weeks before Germany invaded Poland, Heschel left Warsaw for London. And from there, he was aided by Dr. Julian Morgenstern, president of the Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, who was instrumental in extracting at least five or more rabbis and scholars from the grips of death in Europe and brought them to the United States. It was a heroic move. One of those was Rabbi Gunther Plaut, the editor of the Plaut edition of our Torah commentary. Heschel's sisters and mother were killed by the Nazis. He came to New York City in 1940 and joined the faculty of Hebrew Union College for 5 years, and then shifted over to Jewish Theological Seminary, where he was ultimately more comfortable. But let me tell you that he was never fully understood or appreciated either at HUC or at JTS. He was kind of an outlier in both places. He died in 1972. His daughter, Susanna Heschel, is professor of Jewish studies at Dartmouth. If you'll allow me to provide the humanity of Heschel for a moment, let me share with you a story from that was told to me by Dr. Herb Spasser. Some of you will remember the Spassers, who lived in Westfield for a long time. Herb Spasser was a dentist in New York City. Heschel was one of his patients. One day, Heschel came in for his regular appointment to Herb and said, Dr. Spasser, I have a request for you. You have to do me a favor. And Herb said, Dr. Heschel, I'm honored to have you as a patient and as a friend. I'll do anything you want, anything at all that you want. Just say it. He said, well, this afternoon, my daughter, Susanna, has a dental appointment with you. When she comes in, would you please tell her that beetles are bad for the teeth? And Dr. Spasser said, what do you mean beetles are bad for the teeth? I do anything you want, but what do you mean? He said, well, let me just simply tell you that all day and all night long, my daughter is in her room playing the music of the Beatles, and it drives me crazy. I cannot write, I cannot think, I cannot talk, I cannot sleep. If you would please tell her that Beatles are bad for the teeth, maybe it would help me. That's the wonderful humor and the delight of this profound man. Just look at the titles of some of his books. The Sabbath, The Prophets, God in Search of Man, Man's Quest for God, Man is Not Alone, The Circle of the Baal Shem Tov, Moral Grandeur and Spiritual Audacity. And there is a video that you can access, and I recommend it. You can get it, you can see it, I think it's on YouTube. And I have here the mimeograph, yes, mimeograph. Remember the mimeograph machines? This was the most famous program of the Eternal Light. Some of you remember the Eternal Light, sponsored by Jewish Theological Seminary. And this was a conversation with Heschel in 1972 with Carl Stern, who was the US Supreme Court reporter for NBC News. It's quite an interview, and catch it on YouTube. If you want the text, you like to study the text, send an email over to me, and we'll see when things ease up. We'll try to get you a copy of it, or maybe we can scan it. So now, with that introduction, let me share with you quickly some of the teachings, and I'm only going to be able to do a little justice to this extraordinary man. He wrote about radical amazement, and he said, our goal should be to live life in radical amazement. Get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. Everything is phenomenal, everything is incredible. Never treat life casually. To be spiritual is to be amazed. And he writes about awe, radical amazement and awe. Awe enables us to see in the world intimations of the divine, to sense in small things the beginning of infinite significance, to sense the ultimate in the common and the simple, to feel in the rush of the passing the stillness of the eternal. Just take that in for a moment. To feel in the rush of the passing the stillness of the eternal. When's the last time you felt that? And if you haven't, or if you had, maybe later tonight or tomorrow, you'll experience it. Awe is an intuition for the dignity of all things, a realization that things not only are what they are, but also stand, however remotely, for something supreme. Awe is a sense for transcendence, for the reference everywhere to mystery beyond all things. And what we cannot comprehend by analysis, we become aware of in awe. Think about small things, a small thing, that as you concentrate on it, becomes awesome, becomes amazing. Just give it some thought for a moment. Maybe something that you experienced earlier today. Morality. Morally speaking, he wrote, there is no limit to the concern one must feel for the suffering of human beings. Indifference to evil is worse than evil itself. In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. The opposite of good is not evil. The opposite of good is indifference. Those last two sentences have been repeated over and over again and are really very famous Heschel teachings. In a free society, some are guilty, but all are responsible. The opposite of good is not evil. The opposite of good is indifference. The latter line was quoted by Rabbi Joachim Prince when he spoke at the March on Washington prior to Dr. King's talk in 1963 in Washington. Think about when you might have gone from indifference to responsibility, or how you would like to go from feeling indifferent about something to assuming some responsibility for that. Now, a word about faith. Faith, wrote Heschel, is not the clinging to a shrine, but an endless pilgrimage of the heart. Just think about that. Faith as an endless pilgrimage of the heart. He describes faith as audacious longing, burning songs, daring thoughts, an impulse overwhelming the heart, usurping the mind. These are all a drive towards serving God who rings our hearts like a bell. Hey, has God ever rung your heart like a bell? Have you ever thought of God as possibly ringing your heart like a bell? Well, that's why I teach Heschel, because he describes things in ways that I've never thought of before. It is as if God were waiting to enter our empty, perishing lives. Let me add to that Heschel teaches that religion begins with a consciousness that something is asked of us, not that we are in the world simply to enjoy it, but we are here to be conscious that something is asked of us. That God needs human witnesses in order to exist. In Isaiah chapter 43 is written, Atem Edai Neum Adonai. You are my witnesses, says God, and I am God. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, in a very daring interpretation of this, taught that this means if you are my witnesses, I am God, but if you are not my witnesses, it is as if I am not God. That's very daring. It was daring in first century. It was daring today. That if we are not witnesses to God, then it's like God is not present. Segue to Heschel's teaching. God is hiding in this world. God hides in the world. It is our task to let God emerge in the world through our deeds. Our task to let God emerge through our deeds. Think about that. Which brings me to Heschel's teaching about prayer. The primary purpose of prayer is not to make requests. The primary purpose is to praise, to sing, to chant. Because the essence of prayer is a song, and we cannot live without a song. Prayer may not save us, but prayer may make us worthy of being saved. If that's familiar to you, it's because you've read it many times in our Siddur, and that's a Heschel quotation that made its way into Mishkan Tefillah, into our Reform Siddur. Prayer may not save us, but prayer may make us worthy of being saved. And so wrote Heschel, when I marched with Martin Luther King in Selma, I felt my legs were praying. You've probably heard that before. Have you ever prayed with your legs? Have you prayed with your legs? Or with your hands? We pray in many different ways. Some of you may be familiar with the name Hillary Putnam. Not a very Jewish sounding name, but he was a famous philosopher who became particularly interested in Jewish philosophy later in his career, professor at Harvard. Hillary Putnam taught that the vertical is nothing without the horizontal. Now, what does he mean by that? The vertical is an image for prayer upward to God, okay? The horizontal is reaching out to other human beings. So praying upward, forgive the spatial image, but praying upward toward God means nothing, said Putnam, without going outward to human beings. God is hiding in the world. It is our task to let God emerge in the world through our deeds, which we taught a few moments ago, but here for emphasis. Now, shifting Heschel's book on Shabbat. If you haven't read anything of Heschel and you want to think about where to start, you might start with his short gem. It's probably not more than 100, 110 pages, called The Sabbath. It's masterful. The meaning of the Sabbath is to celebrate time rather than space. 6 days a week, we live under the tyranny of things of space. On the Sabbath, we try to become attuned to holiness in time. It is a day on which we are called upon to share in what is eternal in time, to turn from the results of creation to the mystery of creation, from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Time rather than space. Heschel teaches that Judaism is much more a religion of time, overwhelmingly so, than a religion of space. And you know, we don't have great cathedrals. We have some pretty big synagogues, but we don't have cathedrals, and we don't even come close to worshiping space, except, well, some of our brethren, the Western Wall, the Kotel, and a few other places, but that's not historic and fundamental Judaism. Now, we might have a few people here over 60 years of age, no matter what your age. A couple of thoughts on aging. I love this teaching. I love it. When I was young, said Heschel, I admired clever people. Now that I am old, I admire kind people. Can you relate to that? Clever people, now kind people. Continuing with aging, there is a realm of time where the goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, not to control, but to share, not to subdue, but to be in accord. Life goes wrong when the control of space, the acquisition of things of space, becomes our sole concern. I certainly have found, as I've aged, that being is more important, being grounded and centered is more important than having. Giving is more important than owning. Sharing is more important than controlling. And being in accord, in sync, in a sense of shleimut, of wholeness, of peace, more important than subduing. When we try to control space, when we try to acquire, when our focus is acquisition of things, how many people can you think of, how many times in our own lives where this gets played out? Extraordinary teaching. Now it's 8:28. We're almost there. I think we have a chat room here, don't we? I haven't. Yes. Can we chat? I'd love to. I don't see chat on my screen at the moment. Do you have chat? Just thumbs up if you have a chat. Yes? Okay. I'm looking for, maybe I have to go just 1 second. Okay, I got it here. Good. If anybody would like to offer a thought at this point, I have my chat open, and you can certainly do that. If not, I have a final midrash for you. Okay, we'll go on then, and if something comes up, you have something that you want to share, I do have a little midrash for you. When Heschel was a child in Poland, his rabbi relayed the story of the Akedah. Isaac was on his way to Mount Moriah with his father Abraham, and there he lay on the altar bound. My heart, said Heschel, began to beat even faster. I almost sobbed with pity for young Isaac. Behold, Abraham now lifted the knife. Now, said Heschel, my heart froze within me with fright. Whoops. Sorry. Come to it. With fright. Suddenly, the voice of the angel was heard. Abraham, do not lay your hand on the lad. Now I know that you fear God. Why are you crying? Asked the rabbi of Heschel. You know Isaac was not killed. But Rabbi, I said to him, still weeping, suppose the angel had come a second too late. Heschel then added, an angel cannot come late, but we made of flesh and blood, we sometimes come late. Teach us, God, to number our days so that we do not arrive at the important things of life too late. That's Heschel in less than 30 minutes, or on 1 foot. The rest is commentary. I commend to you to go read Heschel and start with the Sabbath. You can start, or you might start with his interview on the eternal light. There's a nice summary by Merkel, not Angela Merkel, but just 1 second. John Merkel, M-E-R-K-L-E, Abraham Joshua Heschel, exploring his life and thought, quite good as well. But I recommend the Sabbath to start. Thank you all for being with us, and I wish you Chag Sameach, and for tomorrow evening. Shabbat Shalom. All be well, be safe. Look forward to seeing you soon. Shalom.
Yeah, Rabbi, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gave me a chance to
Thank you.
gave me a chance to just be with
Excellent.
Heschel again, and that's the joy. I never tire of him. I just have to keep renewing myself and reminding myself of what he teaches.
I can see why.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Anybody else wants to share a word or two? We're open. You can I think we're all unmuted now, I believe. Yes, or you can be. Be happy to hear from anybody in the last couple of minutes if you care to. I can. Oops.
Thank you, Rabbi. Hag Sameach. I'm going to go to the next session.
Please do. Please do. Chag Sameach to all. Anybody else have
Amen.
a comment before we leave?
Rabbi, thank you
Yes.
very much.
My pleasure.
You managed to get the essence of Heschel in a very short time, and there's a lot more to learn, but you gave us a great start. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot. There are worse things to spend your time on.
Yes.
And Mark, you're going to have a lot of free time in a couple of weeks.
Thank you for reminding me.
For those of you who are not at Temple Emanu-El, Mark has a few more weeks as president of the temple. So he has a lifetime before him to study Abraham Joshua Heschel.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be well.
Chag Sameach.
Like Sameach. Like Sameach. Terry, I'll put you in there too. There's Terry. Yeah.
Hag Sameach, Rabbi and
Sameach.
Terry. Yeah.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah,
Nice to see
What?
you.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful choice
Thank you.
yeah.
for these unpredictable, trying times. You know, always love to hear what you have to say
Thank you.
about all of these many things over all of these years.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I hope it continues for many more.
So do I. Heschel is a great teacher for these times.
Yeah, we need
Inspiring.
Heschel. We
Great
need
teacher,
Heschel.
great teacher for these times. We need to carry people like Heschel, giants like Heschel around with us all the time, but especially during these difficult times. I take Heschel with me. I take Martin Buber with me,
Heschel takes Boober.
and Heschel takes Buber, right?
Okay, be well. See you next time. See you next time.
You bet. Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Everybody take care. Be safe.
Right. Well, I'm isolated here in Brooklyn, but it's been an interesting journey watching our brethren with the black hats not obeying the rules and infuriating me.
Well,
But
let's hope
that's
that we hope most people will obey the rules, and we're all one community, and we need to be one community.
well, I agree with that. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. And okay, so I'm gonna wish you all well. We'll leave.
Yes, Rabbi, thank you very much.
Thanks again.
And
My pleasure. My pleasure.
excellent. Thank you.
Best to all of you. Stay well.
I'm done.